Hi, this is Jena Bengtson on Fuego with my rider critique submission. And we've already done a bit of a walk warm-up before the video started, but we're just working trying to get a stretch here, and I'm just encouraging him to step up underneath himself with his inside hind leg. And here I'm picking him up into more of a working frame, and he's just a little resistant there. I did a bit of a half halt and he almost stopped. So just ask him to go on and try to get his neck a little longer and lower and get him to relax. When I picked him up, he popped his head up higher than I'd like. So I'm just kind of pushing his haunches a little to the outside and widening my hands, sponging a little on the inside rein to encourage him to soften and relax. And here he picked up a working trot, and I would have liked to see him a little softer in the upward transition. He was still feeling a little tense in that walk. I probably should have gotten him to relax a little bit more in the working frame walk before we did our trot transition. But and here I'm just working him down into a stretch and getting him a little more over his back, relaxed, and just asking off and on for him to step over with his inside hind leg, get a little more bend through the body. This is his stiff side, so he tends to be just a little more resistant this way. It's a little harder for him to bend, and right there he's trying to look next door. 6 donkeys just moved in next door, so they're a little bit of a distraction for him still. So when he wants to look over there and get distracted, I widen my hands and use my inside leg to ask him to get a little bit more bend to the inside and not look out there. Now he's starting to relax again, and I'm noticing watching this that I seem to be posting off the balls of my feet a little too much, so I'll have to watch that in the future. And we move on to some sitting trot. And I like to start out in a stretch. I know if he pops his head up when I start sitting that he's not ready for me to sit, but he stayed in the stretch until I picked him up. Now here he looks like he lost just a little bit of his forwardness, so I'm trying to get his neck out and get him moving forward a little bit more. And I can see not only is this Fuego's bad direction, but this I think is also a bad direction for me. Because watching this video, I noticed that going on the right rein, I tend to have my right leg, my inside leg is too far out in front of me a lot of the time. So that's something I'm going to have to be aware of now, and hopefully get another video of myself and see if I can correct that a little bit. And I'm just trying to keep my ankles real loose. He's not a real huge mover, but he has a lot of up and down motion in his back at the trot, and so I have to stay really supple through my hips and knees and ankles to move with him and not end up bouncing. And here I've just picked up the canter, and in the canter transition I just try to leave him alone a little, stay light in my seat, and let him have his head. He still finds those transitions a little difficult, so I just let him kind of find his own balance in that. And I'm going to encourage him to try to stretch forward and down a little. I like to do that at the beginning of the canter, and then when he feels a little looser, I'll try to pick him up again. And again, I could still see my inside leg tends to just be a little too far forward, and it looks like my knee and toe have rotated out. I should try to roll my my knee in from the hip. I think would help, and might also help me to keep my leg a little bit more underneath me again. And here I've picked him up into a bit more of a working frame, although you know, he did come up higher than I'd like him to. So now I'm just trying to encourage him to lower at the pole a little bit more and soften in his jaw, get his neck as long as possible. You know, it's always been a struggle with him to get him to stretch out with his neck, especially from the base of his neck, because he was so severely broken over before. But he's coming along slowly but surely. And there he looks like he's starting to relax again. And again, this is his harder direction. And now we just transition back down to trot, and going to try to let him have a little stretch in a minute, and give him a little reward and a short break, and then we'll start in the other direction. And there he's releasing and stretching down. And you can see how when he does that, his movement becomes much more fluid, especially when he actually pokes his nose out a little bit, which it can be hard to get him to do. And now we're on the left rein, and he generally bends better this direction. And we're starting out with a walk, stretching at the walk, and now I've picked him up into a working frame, and he you know, did a little this direction than our first direction, again, just because he tends to bend a little bit better this way and be a little softer this way. Also, he's a little more warmed up by now, too, which helps. And I'm just going to ask him to stretch down, just letting him slowly take the reins out of my hands. He did well there. I'd like to see if I just give him a little bit of rein at a time that he just follows it down, and he did. And again, this direction too, I can see my leg seems to be back underneath me better this direction, but I still notice that I look a little stiff in the ankles as I'm posting. I think if I let my ankle relax down a little bit more, that would be better. And I just get the impression watching this that I might be posting a little too much off the balls of my feet. So something I'll have to watch in the future and try to improve on. And working him back down into a stretch. And there he tried to look at the donkeys again, but he listens pretty good when I ask for his attention back if he gets a little distracted. And slowly picking him back up. He was pretty good there. He didn't come up above where I want him to be, which you know, I was having trouble with in the other direction. Sometimes when I pick him up from a stretch, he tries to pop his head up a little too high and gets a little stiff. So I like that he stayed more relaxed as I picked him up and then let him back down again. I think that's a good exercise for him, to just pick him up and let him down, back and forth. And now here I'm starting to try the sitting trot, and just went back to posting. I think I felt that his back felt just a little stiff, so just went back to posting, let him loosen up again, then I'm going to try to sit again. Again, he's been a challenge to learn how to sit, and I think I'm getting a little bit better at it. Still have a ways to go. I have to remember to keep my elbows, try to keep my elbows really loose, so as my body's moving, my hands don't end up bouncing up and down with my body. But again, I have to really keep those ankles moving and flexing. If I get stiff in my ankles, I start locking up. So, and just a little resistant in the upward transition into canter, but nothing horrible. I know he can do better, but and just slowly letting out the reins, trying to get him to stretch down. He kind of stopped there a little bit. So then I'm just widening my hands and applying a little inside leg to encourage him to stretch forward into the contact and stretch down a little bit more and really loosen up. And I could probably be a little looser in my hips. I see my legs swinging a little bit. So I notice that the other direction too. But overall, I think my position's a little bit better this way, just like he's more comfortable this way. And as he canters, I try to remember to emphasize the upward motion, not to scoop my hips forward as he's going down. I don't want to push him onto his forehand. I want to think about lifting him up with each stride. And now back to the trot. And I'm just going to give him a half a circle at a working trot, then let him have a break and stretch back down. And we'll quit the session in a second here as soon as I feel like he's reaching down and out to the contact.